Wanjigi is currently speaking at the Situation Room, on Spice FM, our sister radio station. Then he's speaking about the debt burden and speaking about the options. Remember, he has been quite articulate about the issue, especially stemming from the elections, rather before the elections took place, that is last year. Jimmy Wanjigi, 2022 presidential aspirant and businessman, is on Spice FM. We'll be getting that interview. And among the issues, of course, just to mention that he has, spoken about on the station is that the finance bill, according to him, is the finance bill 2023 is the government's plan to solve the debt crisis by taxing Kenyans. Those are some of the sentiments, and I want to cross you over to Spice FM, the Situation Room, for more on that interview with Jimmy Wanjigi. Listening.
They've done 406,
yes.
Let's say 400 in 10 months. So what is that?
About 40 per month.
So what?
Deficit of about 31.
31.
Sorry, 34.
Yes, and that is going to be accentuated by the falling value of the shilling. So it may be 34 today, tomorrow it will not be 34.
Now,
at the end of the week,
you need to
definitely
understand
not be 34.
Why,
are they seeking in shillings or in dollars?
Shillings. This is shillings.
This is shillings.
This is shillings. So you ask yourself, why are the investors of bonds and bills, banks, you and I, why are we not bidding?
Why are they shying away from what is traditionally
secure?
The most secure.
Correct.
Yeah.
What has happened?
But when you say
this is a shortfall of almost half, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
It's a big shortfall.
Among the people who are often the takers are just our local banks.
Yeah, but the banks is our money.
Precisely.
Right.
So have they also declined to take?
It's clear.
They're the ones.
It's clear. And they have declined, right? Maybe they would tell you the interest rate. But what is the interest rate an indication of?
Confidence.
Risk.
Yes.
Risk.
Risk. So the government is coming out saying maybe we can't give you more than 10%. So they're saying we're not interested. So what is it they are seeing that we are refusing to see?
They are in country.
They are in country.
And if that is the statement they are making, they are providing fodder for anyone who is external to look and say, if the locals who are usually very eager to take this paper are this reluctant, what do they know that we don't know?
What do they know?
Do we really want to dip our toes in this particular water?
Jimmy, now for the record, we're going to go through each of those 6. Say what you're saying about it. Let's start. Finance bill.
High taxes.
Taxes are going up.
High taxes.
Revenues.
Low revenues. Low revenues.
Hey, Moody's rating.
Distress.
So we've been downgraded by the Moody's. Okay. Our exchange, forex market.
Dropping and thinning like all of us.
The stock market.
People are fleeing. Fleeing.
Our stock market.
Yes.
Okay. Bonds and bills?
Too high risk.
In summary?
Disaster.
Summarize the
disaster is here. It is here. It
here
is not
now
coming.
Or here it is coming here.
It is here. It is actually here. We are just refusing to accept.
Okay.
But it is here.
Have we ever been at this kind of place?
Never in the history of Kenya. And I think that
not even in the 90s.
No.
Never. When we had an issue, we had to bring in a dream team to show up our economy. We had to do all these things. We have never been here.
Now, the good thing at that time
yeah.
is that when a dream team came, there was one main donor that you could put under Paris Club, the bilateral donors. And you put them together, agree certain things in a room, and within a few days, you had an agreement. Now, there's also another misconception that somehow or another, when Kibaki took the government, we were in such a bad state and he revived it, and this can be the case today. Let me
Disabuse us
of that notion.
Yes.
Mwai Kibaki did not inherit this amount of debt. Because of Paris Club and because of the restrictions on borrowings, because of the multi-party era and the lack of it and dictatorship under Moi, he did not have a loan, huge loans to hand over to Mwai Kibaki.
Because nobody would give him the loans.
Yes. So Kibaki inherited a negative 1 GDP. First in our history. That is the notch of Moi's regime. It's the first time we've ever gone to minus one. It was -1. That is what he inherited. But he did not inherit.
How much debt was there at that point?
Oh, very little. It was literally, it was peanuts. It was manageable, and the Paris Club, it was peanuts. Peanuts. So
our revenues could pay.
Yes, our revenues could pay.
Essentially, the government under Moi, as we're saying, was actually paying its debts even then.
It had no choice. But it took us to -1.
The impact of it was...
That was the impact.
Yes, and
in other words, it could not... Yes.
We were raising all our revenues
just to paying that debt.
But you know what is interesting? I was alive and kicking and well, and I could actually eat ugali at that particular point in time. And there was a lot of talk about the suffering. In all honesty, Jimmy, you are alive then. Did you feel this suffering?
Not like this.
Yes.
Not like this. Because CT is cause of only one thing. You did not have the debt.
Yes. Because
that is the thing you must recognize. Is the big difference.
But I'm hearing a contradiction of sorts here, Jimmy. If our debt at that point was almost going shilling for shilling to debt, sounds like we're in the same kind of situation now.
No, let me
where our revenue, whatever it is going almost shilling for shilling to debt.
Yes, but are we accumulating more debt today?
Yes.
Right. Were we accumulating more debt at the time?
No.
No. We had what is called relief. That is the difference. Now, I've also had the other notion, going back now, because now I think we need to start talking about solutions. I had the other notion that, in fact, I think it's the president who mentioned this over the weekend, that he is a good student of Mwai Kibaki. And Mwai Kibaki raised more taxes from 220 billion to 1 trillion by the time he exited. That is true. But Mwai Kibaki did not raise taxes by squeezing the existing taxpayers. What Mwai Kibaki did was bake a bigger cake. He removed what you call the barriers to development that had occurred under the Moi era. And when he did that, he brought more people into the tax bracket. I'll give you an example of media, because we're in a media room. At the time, you had only 2 TV stations. I think KTN was one. And VOK, KBC.
Yes.
I think you had 1 radio station.
When? In 2002?
Yes.
It was slightly more, but yeah.
Yes. So Mwai Kibaki comes and says, why is this thing restricted? Open as many radio stations as you want, as many TV stations as you want, as many vernacular stations as you want. Spread your reach. When you spread your reach, I, as assistee, know that I can talk to somebody in the village through a particular radio station. I advertise more, I get more sales. I contribute more to taxation. So he removed the barriers to development. He did not squeeze the existing taxpayer. All right? And he did that across the country. We saw the expansion of mobile phones that period. We saw M-Pesa during that period. He removed barriers to development across this nation. So we expanded from 220 to 1 trillion. What is being proposed now in the finance bill is to squeeze us who are currently contributing.
It's not opening up more spaces.
No.
Where? Please, maybe I am not understanding something. Maybe you know more than I do. Where is he expanding?
It's creating more conducive business environment.
Where?
Which one?
Which one?
Which particular one? They're usually referring
Opening special economic zones.
I
and
think the finance bill,
industrial parks.
I think the estimates on the finance bill is not on an expansion. At least not that we've seen tangibly. It's on the existing taxpayer. Now, this is where I want to bring in my IMF before we go to solutions. IMF has a very simple template when you come to this situation. They ask three things. Number one, your tax to GDP. So this government has gone and said, oh, we are at a GDP of 4.8. In the next financial year, we are going to grow. We are doing very well. We are going to go to 6.1.
We'll hit 6.1.
We are doing so well. Okay? So they say, okay, if you're doing so well, please raise your tax to GDP ratio. In fact, what I've seen from the IMF is that we are at 17%. They want us to get to about that rate of the shilling and the dollar to the central bank rate. What he was saying is that the government has been showing up the shilling.
Governments do that all the time.
Right, but IMF tells a near impossibility in the time span that we need, because now it is not Paris Club, just bilaterals. It is a myriad of debt. You have the London sovereign with the bonds, Euro bonds, which are almost 900 billion, right? 2 billion, yes, about 300 billion to be paid in this coming financial year. You have the bilaterals that come under Paris Club, and then you've got Chinese debt. To put them all in a room to agree who is cutting off what and who you're saving from, I can tell you that's a very long discussion. So maybe, just maybe, we should not look at debt default as an entirely negative thing.
So you're saying it could be a viable option for the country?
Yes.
What would be the advantages of a debt default for Kenya?
We just talked about the debt this coming financial year of 1.6, almost 1.7 trillion shillings to be paid. If you look at the interest element of that, I think you can see the interest element on bonds, on Kenya shillings, on debt interest, bills, bonds, and others, is what?
For this particular one, it's around 572 billion.
No, at the top here. If you see 2023, 2024, I think top column, you can see interest. Yes, but they're both interest. So cumulatively, it's what? Because you have 572 and 146.
Cumulative is 719 billion.
719 billion.
That is an immediate amount of money that you save.
If you do.
That's on interest.
Yes.
If you say we are in default.
It ceases.
If we say
we are in default.
We are in default.
Yes.
And agree to that.
Yes. We say here, and look at Ghana's situation. What Ghana said is that we're now switching your debts. Yeah, you give me your bonds and bills, right? Which was all this, including interest, and we issue with new ones. So they issued them with new ones, and it said this: we are not paying you your interest rate. Yes.
Suspending it.
We're not paying you. We're issuing you with a new bond of this. We are suspending interest rate payments for the next 3 years.
Suspending.
No, hold on, City. We are suspending forward interest rates, not backward, for the next 3 years. And 3 years' time, we're going to give you a 3%. Not 15, 16%, which was the market at the time in Ghana.
We've renegotiated this thing completely.
Yes, we forcibly renegotiated.
We've forcibly taken away 12%.
Yeah.
Yes.
By virtue of the fact that you're owning up to, look, I can't pay.
I can't pay.
And extended the tenure.
And we are saying, take it or leave it. Okay? But what immediately happens is that you then have a bank crisis.
Yes.
And you have to deal with the bank crisis. And that's where now you come to the sovereign. So we have to take a hit, but we are taking a hit anyway.
It's not one hit. We're taking very many.
We're taking too many hits.
Yes.
So this may actually be, I saw the president say we are not going to default like it's a very bad thing. It is, yes, but it may be the only option. And maybe the sooner we do it, because all we are doing here is digging a hole.
Can I ask this question, Jimmy? From an international perspective, when you default, internationally, are they auctioneers?
Come and take.
The first thing I'm saying is that the auctioneers. Yes, that's why you now negotiate new terms under that default. All right, with those same auctioneers, and the biggest auctioneer, if the person who brings the auctioneers to the table is the same IMF, brings them all to the table, right? And you now show them a new plan.
I mean, you're willing to pay.
We're willing to pay. But, we need breathing space.
This is what we can afford.
Yes. Right? And give us time with various ways we'll grow this economy, we'll cover this debt. But for now, we need relief. Our people are squeezed to the limit. And we are prepared to squeeze them just a bit more, but we need this relief.
If we were to default, let's say we defaulted in the next financial year, we are expected to be paying 1.67 trillion shillings. Do we pay a shilling of it, or do we pay zero?
I'm saying the kind of negotiations we should have, because these are they're all individualistic.
What do we do?
In Ghana,
we are defaulting on our domestic debt, or we are defaulting on our external debt, or defaulting on all debt?
That's a good question. Let me take the example of Ghana, because that's the most recent, right? And it's a good, because our economies were at similar stages. So Ghana said we are defaulting on domestic.
Okay.
Right? And rescheduling foreign debt. So two different discussions. And they removed all interest and literally said, in 3 years' time, come back with your new bond I've issued you at a 30% discount. Take note. So if you had a 1 million shilling bond or 10,000 shilling bond, they said, now this is your new one of 7,000. This is your new one of 700,000. If it was 1 million. 30% discount. And you come back in 3 years, I'll give you this particular interest rate per year. That's what happened.
Okay.
So you had relief.
For 3 years.
You have now, they've negotiated relief, but it comes with a cost. Right? Currency drops. Inflation increases. They have an inflation rate now between 45, almost 50%.
Seriously.
In just a few months. All right? But it is called a bitter pain before relief, because it's coming. Now, which goes to your secondary question, which I think we should really articulate. If we do get this saving of, let us say, 1.7 trillion, are we going to make sure that this 1.7 goes to Mwananchi? That is where CT was asking a lot of questions of management. Are we going to make sure this 1.7 comes back to Wanjigi and Mora?
How will it?
Right.
How would it?
Right. That is where we must be very vigilant. Because I can assure you, if we do, this will change our economy in 3 years' time.
But there's several
This saving out of debt default will save our economy in 3 years' time. We don't need much here. Kenyans work very hard.
But there's something else that's happening as we default. Like you said, inflation shoots over the moon. Everything else is affected. It also means that it's affecting our capacity to raise revenue.
You see?
So our target, let's even go with our 1.8 trillion that we are raising this year. We are then unlikely to be able to raise 1.8 trillion shillings in that next financial year.
But you have relief on debt.
So we have relief on debt.
So you can give further relief.
So you can give trillion.
You can give further reliefs, right, to the same producer, because you now have relief on debt. You don't have to maintain such high taxation.
Okay.
Right? You can't go hand in hand, and I think that's what we are faced with right now. You have a government that has removed subsidies, and if you look at those subsidies, they've been targeted at 3 main items. One is fuel, one is electricity, and the next is food. Those are the 3 main items, maize meal. All right? The government removed subsidies on that. And out of it, they told us that they are making a saving of 200 billion shillings. All right? And then they've come back to increase our taxes. If they made a saving, why are they increasing their taxes? So we get double hits. In double hits, we cannot make ends meet. It's impossible. All right? So in this case, if there is a relief on debt, and that is removed from the debt of the government as an expenditure, then we must get some relief. We must get some relief.
Sure.
That counters a balance on the loss of exchange, on the increase in the inflation rate, and so on and so forth. That is a better relief than what we are currently going through. Because here, we are hit twice. The carpet removed below us, with subsidies being taken away, and then you come and load us with more taxation.
What I'd like to understand, Jimmy, is that if we were to follow this particular suggestion that you're making, we know that our banks keep making horrendous profits as a result of this business they do with the government. It means those profits will go down. Now, will we then see a situation similar to the one we saw in the Kibaki era, where because now, if the government does what you propose, I think you're smiling, it means then that the government will no longer be borrowing in the way that they borrowed. So perhaps the banks will then turn to the individuals and the businesses, put it this way, to their traditional business.
You hit the nail on the head. It means eventually interest rates will
come down.
Yes.
And they'll look for you and I,
yes,
to spur our businesses. But we take a hit. It may last a few months, may last a year. But that decision will eventually lead us to prosperity if this is managed well.
You're saying this would be a faster route to getting out of our quagmire?
Not only faster.
Less painful.
I'm saying it is probably the only way.
It's the only way. From what you're saying, it's
Yes,
the only way to
all
go.
these other ways. This thing of raising taxes is there's no game here. There's literally no game here.
So raising taxes is not viable. Not even sustainable. It's not even viable.
It's not viable. They're just trying to kick the can down the road. But I can assure you, there's no way you're going to raise this money. Raise 2.8 this financial year. You're not going to do it. You're not even going to raise 2. So really, I mean, we're just continuing and prolonging the suffering of Kenyans without a proper decision. And it gets harder the more you postpone.
The closer you get to the next election.
No. Honestly,
this
Eric,
discussion relates
it's
to
now.
this year.
We're not even in 2027.
That's what I'm saying. The more you kick the can down the road, the more difficult the decision for you to make, because you're getting closer to an election and accountability.
Yes, but you have mayhem.
Totally.
You have mayhem. Now, this decision has huge political ramifications. Huge. And this is why you see the procrastination.
Which is worse, to have the eventuality which must come suddenly land on us and you have no control, as opposed to this one where you actually have a say as to what happens on a day-to-day basis.
This is better.
Yes.
But it has huge political ramifications. As I said, you've got players who have been there.
Yep.
Would you trust the same players?
But
Wananchi will become, and those same players now will be saying, no, what Jimmy is proposing is madness.
But Jimmy, there is no escaping the political ramifications. There's no escaping.
Yes.
You procrastinate, the ramifications will be there. And the only problem is, it'll be out of your control.
Yes.
Completely.
Yes.
This one, you have a say. And even as you negotiate with our lenders, you can negotiate with the citizens.
Correct. You've taken control.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
Now, it's a question of whether the citizens will believe you, trust you.